If you play a lot of Fortnite but aren't getting better, this video is for you because I'm going to be teaching you how to actually improve, which will be so effective that it feels like you're cheating. Unlike other esports, the Fortnite meta is constantly changing, not even every season, but every week during the mini updates. So those players who learn and master these meta updates before anyone else will have a huge competitive advantage. You can do this by following the 4-step rule. Firstly, you'll need to know what changes are actually being made to the game. You can do this by simply following a Fortnite news or leak account. For example, I was one of the first ones to see these new items get added to the game yesterday, and this was important because they're rotation items and these always change up the meta a lot. This meant I can go on to my next step, which is seeing how the pros are playing post update. In this case, how they're using the new rotation items. The reason for this is they're going to get there first and already playing post update whilst most of us are at work or school, but also they play more than us and in higher tier lobbies, so they're going to be able to test these items better. This is also quite simple to do, just watch some streams, or if you want to learn some behind the scenes stuff, go into their replays. Once you know how they're using the items, you then want to get practice with the items yourself, but the key here is lots of repetition. You don't want to play out a whole game only to use the item a couple of times and not really understand how it works. Luckily, creative maps are normally really fast at adding these new items in, as they're almost competing at each other to try and do it quickest. I always try and find someone else's map as it's quicker and easier, as you could just load in, but if there's not one, just go into your own creative map and add the items. And finally, once you've learned it inside out, that's when you actually implement it into your games. But you obviously want learning this item to maintain a priority here. For example, if you're in a scrim, make sure to actually carry it. Even if it's not the best item at the time, you're sacrificing that game for the greater good. You've probably heard of Kaufman's rule, which says you need 10,000 hours to master a skill. Most players, when they think of improving, they straight away think of practice, like you probably knew it is in this video before even clicking on it. However, this is often where a lot of players also go wrong, because people's perception of training is different and they could be doing something that isn't sufficient enough to improve. First of all, you want to make sure your practice is realistic. There's a reason creative warriors exist. They spam creative, but once they get in a real game, they can't cope. But don't take that the wrong way, because I actually love creative and I think it's the best way to improve your fighting because of the amount of repetitions you could get in a short amount of time. For example, if you were to play a ranked match, you're probably only going to take a handful of fights and there's a lot of wasted time just trying to find people. Whereas if you use this time to play creative instead, where you can instantly respawn and go into the next fight, you're going to get maybe triple or more the repetition. However, it is going to be more realistic because it's got the comp map and loot pool. So basically just get a good variation of different practice methods, as they all have different benefits, and just find the balance that works right for you. This is going to be different person to person because each player has a different amount of time they can allocate to the game. For example, a player that could only practice for 1 hour a day would be better off playing something with high repetitions like creative than zone rule scrims, where there's a lot of dead time waiting in the lobby for the game to start, but then also waiting for endgame. Something that maximizes the time you have to practice, especially the players that have little, is just to make a schedule. This will help you keep organized, knowing what you're going to practice and when. This will combat the trap a lot of players fall into when they just hop online and play the game but go into autopilot, and then near the end of their session they realize they haven't actually practiced at all or improved. Something you could do throughout your sessions is just ask yourself a question: is this for practice or is this for fun? For some players that are tilting, it might be neither, so just wrap it up. If you're serious about improving at Fortnite, it definitely needs to be about 80% practice and 20% fun. I can already hear the keen players thinking, why not 100%? But if you actually tried this over a long period of time, you would find out it's not realistic. The whole reason you started playing Fortnite is because it was fun. If you strip that away, it's just going to feel like a chore, and this is what leads to many pros quitting the game. Something else that slows down improvement is playing for clips over practice. If two different players took 100 fights a day, who do you think is going to improve faster? The player that was trying to be flashy and hit 100 clips, or the player that practiced all 100 fights like they were in a tournament and actually focused on minimizing their damage taken? Next, I want to talk about the power of friend groups, and if you've ever listened to a Fortnite Pro interview, they always say that their success skyrocketed when they found the right grinding friend group. A lot of people don't believe this because they think, how can other people make me better at the game? But sometimes these external factors are just as important, so let's look at some of the benefits and why the pros swear by these. So firstly, it's going to greatly improve your motivation and you'll actually want to hop on the game, especially in the longer term when grinding alone can be difficult. Trust me on this one, as I've experienced it the hard way way myself, and it's why I quit for over 2 chapters. Back in chapter 2, I used to have a big friend group and we used to play and grind together. But slowly, one by one, they all started quitting and I was left to grind alone. I could only manage to do this for a few more months before having to quit myself. You also have the benefit of being able to learn from each other. You can discover new strategies and fix mistakes that you haven't even done yourself, just from what your friend group has shared with you. I'm friends with a great Division 1 player, and although I can't play with him, I'm always asking him questions to gain his experience and knowledge. And finally, they offer friendly competition, which is good for motivation. A lot of friend groups all sitting cool whilst playing solos and all try and outplace each other. Just make sure this doesn't turn toxic, as this can happen, which will affect confidence but also put unnecessary pressure on you performing every tournament. If you're wondering how to find a friend group or players for a new chord, then you can use the comment section of this video. And also make sure to join my coaching Discord linked in the description, as I have a looking for group channel. It's pretty self-explanatory that if you're not learning from your mistakes, then you're never actually going to improve. So many players die the exact same way every single cup because they don't put any effort into fixing what they're doing. The great thing about Fortnite is although replays are buggy, it gives you everything you need to identify and fix mistakes. You can watch mistakes just from watching your own gameplay, or you could watch from the enemy's perspective. And then there's obviously drone freeze, where you can look at the surroundings also and see the surrounding third parties. However, there's 2 mistakes that are really common when it comes to VOD review. The first being players only focus how they're eliminated in that exact moment. They focus on micro mechanics like, oh, my peak was too wide, but they don't recognize their bad rotate that got them beamed and started the fight, which means they'll never learn from the true mistake. Second is players see what they're doing wrong but then do nothing with this information. They'll end up forgetting about it, so make sure to write it down. The final step's to practice and implement the fix into your gameplay. Every second counts in Fortnite, so you need things to happen naturally. The opponent's not going to wait for you to pull up your notes. When you start VOD reviewing more and more, if there's a common way that you'll always die, and this is going to be known as your weakness. It's really advantageous if you discover this, because then you'll be able to prioritize it in your training that we talked about earlier. This is going to be a faster fix for your vulnerability, therefore improvement. To prioritize something in your practice, just make sure you're doing it more than anything else, but also do it at the start of your session where you'll be more fresh and be able to focus on it better. If you go to the gym, you'll be familiar with this practice, as it's recommended the muscle you want to prioritize should be at the start of your session. Something that's interesting is a lot of pros agree with this, but Vino doesn't. He said before on stream it's a waste of time focusing on any weaknesses. Instead, you should double down on your strengths. For example, a height team would get even better at playing this layer instead of trying to learn something like low ground, which actually makes sense. So let me know in the comments which you think should be prioritized, strengths or weaknesses. You should now know how important fixing your mistakes is to improving as a player. The power of doing this is why I actually recommend sticking with teammates rather than finding new ones every week. If you stick with the same duo, you can VOD review together and fix your mistakes, and hopefully improve your placements each duo division. This actually happened to me recently, where I said I was going to stick with my mate for the whole of duos, and I ended up dropping him after week 1 as it went really bad, but then hugely regretted it, because then in the next cups I was playing with players even worse. We had zero chemistry and the vibes just weren't there, and before I knew it I was playing with a different duo every session, meaning we couldn't fix any mistakes and we were dying the exact same ways as the last. And then to put the nail in the coffin, my teammate nearly won the division and got promoted with his new teammate. So in conclusion, it's a mistake to split after one bad tournament, whereas it's really beneficial to stick together and fix your mistakes. If you found the video helpful, I've got way more coming, so make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications, and I recommend clicking here to watch how to fight like Tino and master the fragger roll, as it's one of my best videos.